Mishpatim. Lots of laws to learn in this Torah portion as we're standing at the foot of Mount Sinai. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam shehakol nitborei.
Amen.
All right, let's get right into it. We are in the second reading. We are chapter 21 in Sefer Shmos in the book of Exodus, verse 20. Ki yake ish es avdei, when a man will strike a slave, or his slave woman, b'shevet, with a rod, umeis, tachas yadei nokim yinokim. Under his hand, he will surely be avenged. Rashi. When a man strikes a slave or a slave woman, is this speaking about a Canaanite slave? Or perhaps, or it's speaking about it's speaking about a Hebrew servant, slave. Talmud Loimar, who says property. Property is something that's owned to you forever, right? So therefore, so it's referring for a slave, a servant who belongs forever, unless you free them, right? Right. Which, if you remember, when a Canaanite slave becomes freed, they become Jewish completely. So, if he be one who strikes and he dies, removes him from this general category, to be judged a day or two. So if it's not a direct result of the blow of the master's hand, then he is acquitted from a death penalty. In other words, if it has to be a direct blow from the master, that therefore he is total responsible. He's liable, right? Not indirect. With the rod, we're speaking about here a rod, has sufficient weight and strength to cause death. Or maybe it means that it doesn't have sufficient strength to kill. Talmud Loimar, Israel says by an Israelite who was killed, that if it struck him with a hand-sized stone, that he would die. And more stringently, only something, he's only liable if he struck him with an object that is sufficient to cause death. Likewise, one part of the body which has would cause a blow to death. So the servant who is more lenient, all the more so. He's just proving, because it doesn't say here, it just says that, he struck him, right? B'sheva with a rod. So was it a thin rod? Was it a heavy rod? What? So we learn by in another place that it says there something that's in a stone that's big enough in your hand that has enough power to kill. So here also we learn from there that means the same thing over here. We learned that from a Kal V'chomer. Okay. Nokim yinokim, he'll be avenged. Mitzvah sayif. This refers to death by sword. V'chein hu, the sword avenges the covenant. So, in other words, if he killed the servant, right, and it's within that, it was direct, then he would be liable for the master for the death penalty. Okay, 21. Oops, sorry. Remind me to scroll if I didn't remember. Okay, 21. However, if he survives a day or two, so he cannot be avenged. In other words, it won't be a death penalty, for he is his property. If it survives 1 or 2 days, so Rashi asks, if he survives 1 day, he's acquitted. Obviously 2 days, right? In other words, if he wasn't directly killed because of what he did to him, right? It wasn't direct in that it took a day. Obviously, 2 days, you'd be acquitted too from the death sentence, right? So why does it say 2 days? If 1 day he got up, right? 2 days for sure he'd be acquitted. So why does the verse say 2 days? Right? But it's like a day that's 2 days. What is a day like 2 days? It means a 24-hour time period. In other words, a day, you could say, let's say the master hit the servant now, right? So the day is till the end of the day, till nightfall. So it's only several hours. No, it's a day that's like 2 days, which means 24 hours. It's a 24-hour period. Right? Now, if now, 24 hours later, he dies within that 24 hours, then he's liable to death sentence, the master. If not, then he's not liable to death sentence. That's what it means. Yeah, that's good? Clear?
Not 2 full days, it's within 2 days.
That's the idea of a day that's 2 days, right? Right, it crosses 2 days, which any 24-hour period will do. Right, because it didn't happen exactly at nightfall, right? It happen an hour later, happened in the morning, middle of the night, so it's going to cross 2 days, exactly. Okay, verse 22. Kinot Anashim, when men will fight, v'nogfu isha, and they will hit a woman, hara, that's pregnant, and she miscarries, she will, but there is no fatality. In other words, to the woman, right? She miscarried because, right? There shall be a punishment. Kasher yoshis olav, that as when the husband of the woman shall impose upon him, Bala Isha v'notzon lilim, and he will give it through the judges. In other words, judges are going to make a judgment on what happened over here, right? 2 men are fighting. I guess the wife, maybe the wife of one of the men, let's say, standing there, and she got jostled, and because of that, she lost her child, right? So now the judges are going to make a judgment on that. That's what the verse is saying. Let's see Rashi. Okay? What does this mean over here? No. Rashi in 22, Kinot Anashim, when men will fight, Zeim one with another, Ben Iskabalak, says Chaver, and one intends to strike his fellow. Because he Shabbat by accident, he struck the woman. Right? That's what we're talking about. And they will jostle. The word negifa, right, over here means pushing down and striking. He's giving just different examples. Okay, just giving examples. Next Rashi. But there will be no fatality by Isha with the woman, right? As opposed to the fetus. Nothing happened to her, right? No fatality to her, but to the fetus. Onashianush, he will be penalized. L'shalom d'mei v'ladis labal. What does he have to do? He has to pay the value of the aborted offspring to the husband of the woman that was struck. Shalman Oysa, we assess her. Kama Haysa Ruya Lemocha Bishul, how much she was fitting to be sold in the marketplace, right? But what means sold? Sold as a servant, right? She's going to be sold more, believe it or not, because she's pregnant. Why? Because you're going to get 2 for 1. So she's worth more. And how do you make the value of the fetus, right? It's a life. It's in the, it's interesting from this we see, right? It's not considered a full life, right? No death penalty here, right? No death penalty. It's not considered, right? There's a punishment for it, but it's not considered a full life, right? So she will have a raised price because of her pregnancy. Because again, being sold as a servant, there's getting 2 for 1. Should surely be penalized. Rashi, Yigbu Mimena Mammon, collect money from him. Like as they will be penalized him for 100 silver coins. Aha. You might think over here it's corporal punishment. Maybe he gets lashes, right? No. This term of penalized is a term that means money.
Okay.
Actually, the next words kind of could prove it. As it's kasher yashis olav, as the husband shall impose upon him. What does that mean? Because she's been balabais bidin. The husband lays a claim against him, right? He's the plaintiff against him in court. Lashis olav, oynish al kach, that he imposes a penalty upon him for what happened.
Can you scroll up, Rabbi?
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
They say monetary compensation.
Yeah, monetary.
What number are you on?
We're in 22.
Sorry?
22.
22? Oh, 22. Okay, sorry. I'll ask my question later. 22 was a lot of Rashi.
Okay, Minatsan, and he shall give, Amak is the one who struck the woman, shall give the value of the aborted offspring, Biflilim, through judges, Alpia Dayanim, according to the judges. So the judges are making that judgment. Okay.
So Rabbi, quick question.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how far advanced the woman's pregnancy is.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right. According to Jewish law, by the way, you know what? I know where the box. Oh, the box is in the corner. We have more in a box over there. I've got another 5 of them. Yeah, we received them. Yeah. So, yeah, it doesn't matter. So we see from here very clearly that it's not considered. It's not a living being that you would get the death. That you're liable for the death sentence. Okay. 23. If however, there is a fatality to the woman, right? Then you will give a life in the place of a life. Rashi 23. If there will be a fatality by Yishu in the woman, then you will give a life in place of a life. There's a dispute over here between the sages. Some say that literally a life, right? Others say no, you have to pay money. But not literally a life. In other words, that there could be a death penalty. Why? Because he intended to kill the other guy, right? Didn't intend to kill the woman, right? So then that's manslaughter, not murder, according to this opinion, right? Baharig is them. Upatim mimisa. Therefore, you're exempt from death. And you pay the victim's heirs the value. As again you would get for in the
Who
marketplace.
determines that, the judges?
Yes. Yeah, the judges will determine that.
What happens with an eye for an eye? They take out the guy's eye?
That's loose.
Huh?
That's the most loose.
Wait.
Or that's when you-
I don't know. Let's wait till we get there. I don't get the first opinion about why there would be a death penalty. I don't understand it. Because he didn't have intention to kill her. That was accidental. So I don't understand how it could be liable for the death penalty. I don't get that. To look more into that. Okay. 24, what Shimon Levi has been waiting for a long time. Ayin tachas ayin, an eye in the stead of an eye. Shein tachas shein, a tooth in the stead of a tooth. Yad tachas yad, an arm in the stead of the arm. Regel tachas regel, and a foot in the place of a foot. Rashi ayin tachas ayin. Sima ayin chaver. If someone blinded their friend's eye, he gives them the value of the eye, which is assessed in the terms of kama she dama of limkor bashuk. Again, right? How much he would be in the marketplace as a servant, right? A servant with blind, a servant that's not blind. The difference between it, that's what you have to pay. Okay, is that clear? By the way, are there any other things you have to pay? That was yesterday's class we learned. At the end of yesterday, there's damages. This is damage, right? The damage in the person is right. There's also the fact that you couldn't work, so you have to pay for what's it called? These are all compensation. It's work for the work that you lost, right? You have to pay for that. You have to pay for the doctor's bills. If there is busha, if there's an embarrassment, you have to pay for that. Those are all separate things. Not double dipping, right? They're not double dipping though. Which, well, it was yesterday's class, not now. Okay. All of them also, when it speaks any limbs or organs, it means only to say it doesn't mean you literally take a limb. As our sages have expounded it in the Talmud. So Shimon Leib, he walked out on this. I guess he didn't like the answer that Rashi gives. He'd rather take an arm. Yeah. Right. By the way, in the context of it, you also see that it means an eye for an eye means literally the monetary value, right? Because the end of last verse was the judges are going to make a judgment how much you have to pay for the miscarriage, right? Actually, interesting.
But it's a different case, though. The previous verse.
Well, the previous one, he took her life. That was the previous one, but the one before that, the verse before that, was speaking about a limb, right? The fetus is considered like a limb, right? But what's the proof? Because if it was considered life, then it could be you could be liable for death sentence, but you don't, right? So here also, an eye for an eye is a limb. So just as like that was monetary value, and that's a fetus. This is an eye only. So obviously it means monetary value in context also. Follow? Okay, next. 25. Kviya tachas kviya, a burn in the place of a burn. Petza tachas petza, a laceration in the place of a laceration. Chabura, a bruise tachas chabura, a bruise. Excuse me. Rashi in 25. Kviya tachas kviya, a burn in place of, what does that mean? Kviya seish, a burn by fire. But akshav dibra b'chavala she'ein chas dami. So till this point, we're speaking about an injury that causes a depreciation of the value of the person, right? In other words, what's a depreciation? Obviously, a servant is not as good a servant if he's blinded with an eye, right? Then he's not blinded, right? He's not going to do the job the same. If he's missing an arm, obviously he's not going to do the same job, right? So that's what we're talking about till now. Now we're talking about, well, you suffered pain, right? You got burnt, right? You got burned. So is there a long-lasting damage? No. But that's also something, right? It's also a damage. Now with the Torah is speaking about an injury that does not depreciate the value of the person, but it's got pain. Like someone who injured a person, that he burnt him on his fingernail with a spit. With a spit in the fire, right? They use, right? So now we estimate how much money would a person such as this victim be willing to take in order to suffer in this manner. In other words, how much money would you take to, right? How much is it worth it for you that someone should take a spit and burn your finger, right?
It's like reversing the question of it.
Yeah. Fascinating. In other words, that's how much the pain is worth it for you, right? Well, that's how much you have to pay then. Got it? Okay, petza, laceration. Himaka maitim dam, that's a blow that brings out blood. Shapetza, lacerates a victim's flesh. And in Old French, navrur. Hakol lafi mashu. Everything is according to the circumstance of the case. Im yesh b'chas damim. If it involves appreciation of the value of the person, then you have to give the damage. Right? That was in the previous verse. Im nafal mishkab. If he's bedridden, that's a different story, right? Maybe you're not bedridden. Maybe you are bedridden, right? So then, sheva's ripui b'boishes v'tzar. Then you have to give the loss of the income. You have to give for the healing, which means the medical bills, the embarrassment, and the pain. Mikvazeh Yosser, and this verse seemingly superfluous because it doesn't refer to a new category of payment. Because we've already learned about pain. One second. We learned about pain. Where did we learn about pain?
Maybe the portion that we didn't.
No, yesterday doesn't know. Yesterday we spoke about paying for medical bills.
But we didn't finish yesterday.
Don't speak for yourself. I finished.
You need to scroll up again, Rabbi.
Oh, thank you.
I am speaking for myself.
Well, yeah. Your singular we seems to incorporate a lot. So I'm not certain. Okay, I don't see where Rashi's making reference to. Okay, let's go further. So he's asking that this seems to be superfluous. So now our sages, they explain to obligate a person to pay for pain, even though they paid for damage. Even though you gave the value of the hand, you're not exempt from compensating for pain. Okay. Now I got it. That makes sense. We did learn before about damage, right? Right. If you damage, you have to pay for the damage, right? How do you pay for the damage? If you cut off a guy's arm, you have to see how much he's worth without the arm versus how much he's worth with the arm, right? So that's paid. So you might think as a result of you paid for the arm, so you don't have to pay for pain now. This verse is coming to say you paid for the arm, but you didn't pay for the person's pain that they lost their arm. It's two separate things, right? Damage is damage, pain is pain. Now, this verse is coming to say that you have to pay for the pain separately, right? That means even though the person who injured him, he sort of acquired the person's arm because he paid for it, right? In a certain sense, right? But when you did damage for the person that lost his arm, right? There's different ways that you could have lose an arm. You could have done it through surgery under anesthesia, no pain. Then you'd only pay for the damage, right? Of the loss of the arm, you wouldn't pay for the pain. But if you did it with a sword and you cut off his arm, then there is pain. For that, you got to pay separately from the damage. Follow the distinction? Yeah. You need your Talmudic caps on, everybody. This is Talmudic logic over here. This is the beginning. This is grade 3 Talmudic logic. Okay. So welcome to grade 3. It's all right. Most people didn't graduate grade 3. Okay. Because then you could say to the person, you cut off the arm with a drug that he wouldn't suffer such pain. And this person, with an iron or with a sword, he caused him pain. Therefore, he must compensate him for pain. That's the point over here. Okay? That's the point of the laceration. Okay, next. Chabura, a bruise. This is a blow which causes blood to coagulate. But doesn't escape. In other words, you got a bruise, right there. So there's blood that, you broke blood vessels, but it didn't come out. But it redens the flesh opposite. In Old French is taché. He's just giving examples here. The leopards and its spots. It's in Old French, batudra. Kifan hidum. He's just giving different examples. Okay, we're going to 26, sorry. Verse 26, Ki yake ish, when a man will strike, is ein avdai, the eye of his servant, the eye is ein amasai, or of his maidservant, the sheikh saw, and he destroyed it, the chavshi shalchenu tachas einai. He has to send him to freedom because of the eye. Rashi in 26. As ein avdai, so Rashi said Kanani. This speaking by Canaanite slave. Why? Because a Hebrew servant doesn't go out if they lost a tooth or an eye. Because we learned that yesterday, that he doesn't go out that the Hebrew slave doesn't go out like other slaves. So a non-Jewish slave would go out if the master knocked out his tooth, right? Or whatever. He would go out, he'd become free as a result of that.
Who would go free?
The slave. Well, the slave.
The
Canaanite slave. That's what Rashi just said. A Hebrew slave doesn't go free. That was yesterday. We had a verse for that yesterday. You know why? You know why? Because the verse said so.
Is there more advantages? Isn't there a greater advantage for him to be set free?
It's irrelevant, to the learning of the law, right?
But we can question why the Canaanite is it's allowed to go free.
Yeah,
why is
in
it-
Rashi you can't question, because Rashi is just giving you the understanding what the verse is telling us, right? Only in some
still surprising.
circumstance, only in some circumstance, maybe you could, it yeah, it is. But in learning Chumash and Rashi, that's not really a question. And understanding try to understand drush, which is a homiletics, right? And how you expound. It's no. There's no coffee. There's no coffee today. No coffee. No coffee. If you want coffee, you have to take from the from the hot water there. Right. So
Are you surprised by that? By the fact that a Canaanite is allowed to go free?
no, I don't. I don't remember. I mean, there is commentators on it, right? There are commentators on it to explain, but I don't recall the explanation of it. And Rashi's not bothered by it because it's not a question in simple meaning of understanding what the text is, right? Because again, Rashi's coming to tell us this is the law, this is the understanding of what the Torah is telling us. The giving an explanation is already a great come down, right? Because the Torah doesn't give an explanation. So whatever explanation you're going to give is a limited ray of light as opposed to the sun itself. This is the sun, right? This is what it is.
Okay.
The ray of light. So the Abarbanel will explain like this, another will explain like that. Not to say that it's true. It's not that it's not true, but you can never say that the explanation is absolute truth, in the sense that it is, because the Torah doesn't tell us that. So therefore, it's only a ray of the light. It's truth. It's a truth, but you can't say it's the truth,
Okay.
right? You can't say that. And therefore, that's why we also have to be very careful with that when we give an explanation, because then, so there'll be layers of it, right? This is absolute. This is what it is, because the verse said so. Okay, is that clear? Okay. Tachaseinai. So next Rashi. In return for his eye, so Rashi says that the law that this Canaanite slave goes free is also any 24 limbs. It's boys, yadayim, raglayim, fingers, hands, feet, shtei aznaim, 2 ears, v'chaitim, a nose, reshi agvia, shuhu gida'ama, the male organ, v'lamaneh reshem b'ayin. So why does the Torah tell us, if it means all 24 limbs, why does the Torah only give us 2? So Rashi explains, because im nemar ayin v'loy nemar shein, because if you would just say eye and you wouldn't say a tooth, then you would conclude that all the other organs, like an eye, I would say ma ayin shenivra imoy, an eye that's born with him, right? Then with that, in other words, at his birth, of course, shenivra imoy. Likewise, anything that was created with him, harei shein lo nivra imoy. A tooth is not created with him, right? A tooth comes in later. So therefore, if you knocked out a tooth, you wouldn't be free. Therefore, the Torah has to tell us tooth, right? Then go the other way around. Tell us only tooth, and you don't have to say eye, right?
Yes.
Are you following?
Yeah.
You look a little puzzled.
Because
It's clear?
the tooth when the baby is born, he has no teeth.
So if it's telling you a tooth, so it means anything that will come into you. So then all the more so if something you already were born with, right? That if that was knocked out, then you would be free, right? But if it only said tooth, it didn't say eye, then I would say I would say even a baby tooth. That there is a replacement. That's why it says eye. In other words, something that's permanent. An eye is permanent, so it means you're a permanent tooth though, so not your baby teeth. Okay? Got it? That's called, again, Talmudic reasoning, right? That's called, though, biblical law, right? Because it's based on the verse and how you learn out the verse, right? There's a superfluous word, either eye or tooth. You don't need both of them because it means neither of them. It means all 24, right? It means all 24. So if it's all 24, why are you telling us two? Because one would include the other, so that gives us the parameter of the law. It needs permanent teeth, something that's permanent, even though it wasn't born with you. Permanent teeth and your eyes, your fingers, your foot, and so on and so forth. Okay?
Learning Mishpatim is a good training to then learn
Talmud. Yes. As I mentioned it yesterday, I mentioned that this is a prerequisite for all the Baba Kama, Baba Mitzvah, Baba Basra, which are the basic laws of damages, are in those three parts of the Talmud tractates. Yes. Okay. 27. V'im shein avdei v'shein. So if it's a tooth of his servant, or shein amasai of his maidservant, yapil, that will fall out. He'll be sent free because of the tooth. So in the previous verse we spoke about an eye, and this verse is speaking about a tooth, right? And Rashi already explained it, why we need the two of them. Yeah? Okay. Now we're going to go into property damage. That your property did damage. Not you did damage to someone, right? But your property. When a ox will gore. Es ish. Isha, a man or a woman, vames, and they will die. The ox will get stoned. You can't eat its flesh. And the owner of the ox is innocent. He's clean. Right? Even though someone was killed. Let's see Rashi. When an ox will gore. It doesn't mean just an ox, it means any animal. So why is it to say an ox? So here Rashi explains because it's speaking in a usual manner. An ox is more likely to go and kill somebody than a another kind of animal. And the flesh shall not be eaten. What does that mean? It won't be eaten. Now, the fact that the ox is going to be stoned, don't I know that it's an avela, meaning it wasn't slaughtered, so you can't eat it, obviously, right? So why do you have to say that you can't eat it? And we know that a unslaughtered animal that dies by not being slaughtered is forbidden to be eaten. So why does the Torah come and tell us he should not eat its flesh? Because it means if you slaughtered it properly after it had been sentenced to be killed, it'd be forbidden to eat the meat. So that means you can't eat it. How do you know you can't have any benefit? Right? In other words, let me feed it to my dogs. I can't eat it, but my dogs could eat it. It could be dinner for my animals, right? Or any other benefit. How do we know they can't have benefit? Talmud Leimer, the verse says, "Lashor, ubalashor naki," and the ox, the owner of the ox is clean. Like a person says to another, that this person was cleaned out of his possessions. There's no benefit from anything. And this is the midrashic explanation of what it means that the owner of the ox is innocent. So the simple meaning is, what does it mean that he's innocent? Innocent that he won't get a death penalty, right? He won't get the death penalty. He's innocent of that. his ox that did it. He didn't do it, right? The midrashic explanation means he's clean. He's clean from any benefit from it. He has no benefit from it. If he has no benefit from it, then why do you have to say that he can't eat it? Seemingly that's superfluous now. Okay. Pshuta kimashmoi. The simple interpretation is because we're speaking about a muad over here that killed a man. The gambala you must. We're gonna see later. Here it says he's innocent, right? Later on, and this is going to be what's called a tam. A tam means an ox that is not. Its nature is not to gore, and it gored and it killed. This is the law. We're going to learn. Next verse, which will be on your own. On your own. Sorry. Huh? That if it did it 3 times, and the whole parameter, what that means 3 times, then it's called the sharmuad. Then the verse is going to say that he is actually, it says that the owner of the ox dies. It doesn't mean literally dies, as you'll learn, right? Because obviously he didn't kill. It's his ox that killed, so you're not going to get a death sentence for that. Well, that's in the next Rashi. The point that he brings out over here it means that he's acquitted, that he doesn't die. Okay, and therefore you have to say that he's innocent over here, because next we're going to say he's not innocent, as we will see. Okay, sorry that I would love to continue because this is like such fundamental teachings of the Torah. And but we're going to do Tanya now. All right, folks.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.